Yeah, all good. All good. Nice, peaceful, early evening walk, and it's a nice spring evening here. It's been a beautiful day, and I was going for a bit of a walk and doing a bit of reflecting. And I was reflecting on how sometimes teams can go into these sort of losing streaks, and sometimes the losing streak is not in football for a team. Is not down to any sort of tactical failure, so to speak. Um, they can be down to even a breakdown in certain fundamentals. And I think in these situations, it's kind of bringing the focus back into communication and concentration from when the whistle goes to start the game and the end of the game. And obviously, there can be very many variables at play in terms of a streak, a losing streak, and I'm not sort of suggesting I have all the answers or giving any advice, anything like that. And there's a number of variables that could be at play. But I thought I'd focus on this element, sort of going for a walk. And I mean, what sort of came to mind as well was years ago, it was 2006 season, years ago. Blackburn were going through a tough run. I think they won 5 out of 18 games or something around something like that. If memory serves me correct. But anyway, long story short, a mate, it was a colleague of mine, good bloke, was a sports scientist there, Tony Strudwick, good bloke. He was a sports scientist at the time at Blackburn Rovers Football Club, and he'd go on to work at Manchester United. And he was one of the best in the business, and a really, really top man as well. I got to know Tony when I was working at Barry, and I met him at a couple of conferences here and there. And he always struck me as a really, really good bloke, and always happy to offer some pointers and that. And he'd invite me down to the training ground now and again to get a few ideas over at Brockville. He even invited me to United a couple of times to go down and have a look and that. And I found it quite useful when he was there. But anyway, long story short, he kind of asked me, he said, if you could come in and maybe do a workshop to the coaches. And at the time, Mark Hughes was the gaffer there. And I went in. I think it was would have been about December that year, 2006, probably roughly about then. And I just sort of delivered in the run up, I was sort of trying to get my head around from a phenomenological perspective what I could sort of plan and put together, an NLP workshop, and I sort of wanted to sort of like get my head around what to put together, and I sort of asked and said, what if you speak to the coaches, the gaffer, and yourself, and what are your thoughts in terms of where I could come in based on my remit, what I can put together, and they sort of gave me the freedom to sort of come in and as you see fit, really, and I sort of put together a couple of hour workshops, so to speak. And look, I'm not putting the reason why they turned their season around down to me, because I'm sure it's got nothing to do with anything I did, and many other variables, and you got fantastic manager and staff and so on and so forth. And I'm not sort of under any illusions of trying to do a video and imply I had anything to do with them turning the season around. But now and again, it's good to sometimes have someone come in externally. Sometimes it's like a breath of fresh air, a few new ideas here and that, and even sometimes to kind of validate what you're doing and maybe offer a few suggestions here and there. Whether they take the suggestions is a different story altogether. Don't know. It is what it is, and the purpose of the video is not to sort of like try and suggest that I went in and made any difference. The purpose of the video is that, kind of deep in thought I was thinking, and I'm not saying this was the case in that situation, just sort of generally from my experience of sort of working with, teams when they've been stuck trying to turn things around. There's no two teams the same, or two situations the same, or players the same for that matter. So it's always, for me, a phenomenological approach. It's always been that way. But anyway, long story short, I think for me sometimes, I think sometimes it's the question of the maybe a breakdown in a few of the fundamentals, and I think that's where for me, focusing on sort of communication and concentration can probably have the biggest impact in that scenario. But anyway, I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are, if you're sort of coach, player, even a fan, and any sort of thoughts or a you think type thing, where sometimes you sort of watch a team and you think, okay, from the outside looking in, we can all have a sort of perception of different things, really. But I think in my experience, I would say at times, yeah, it's sort of breaking down that breakdown in just basic fundamentals. And if you start with application effort, controllable factors, and aim for that best performance and orientate yourself towards that, then you begin to focus on communication and concentration from the start to the finish of the game. That's generally, if not a good place to start, generally a good component to cover. But great to hear your thoughts.